Forward TV. The world is thinking.
If you could ask the question that you were not able to ask of Hillary Clinton, and then maybe answer it, or give your own comments on the Secretary's statement this afternoon.
I would like to talk about it because I think what we saw from Hillary Clinton was the unveiling of a new era of climate structural adjustment. For those of you unfamiliar with the term structural adjustment, is what the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank used to do. They still do it, but they don't use the term anymore because it's got such a bad reputation. But when poor countries would desperately need a loan, the World Bank or the IMF would give a list of conditions. Okay, we'll give you the loan, but only if you privatize your water and your electricity and you let our corporations in and just adjust yourself to our terms. This is a really, really hated phrase in the global South. But what Hillary Clinton just did is she walked into that meeting and she said, these are our terms. Kill Kyoto, no legally binding agreements, only transparency, whatever the hell that means. No global emission target, emission cut targets, but everybody go off, make your national plan, and then we'll mash them together, which means there isn't a global goal. And also forget about the whole idea of historical responsibility. She even said something about how some people want to look back, but we want to look forward. Historical responsibility is a hugely important factor here in these negotiations because in the climate convention that the U.S. signed, it states clearly that the responsibility for solving the climate crisis rests primarily with the countries that created the crisis, the developed countries, the industrialized countries. Not that developing countries don't need to do anything, but that rich countries that created the climate crisis clearly have to take the lead. So she rejected that whole concept out of hand. She laid out the terms, and then she said, and we agreed to $100 billion for some climate fund, vaguely defined, that will be available to poor countries to deal with things like floods, droughts, malaria, by 2020. So here's the money, and then she explicitly said, but the U.S. will not contribute anything unless you agreed to these terms. So it was climate blackmail or climate structural adjustment. And my question is really, what about the principle that the polluter pays? In other words, who is the U.S. to set the terms of this agreement when in fact the U.S. as a country bears the greatest responsibility for the creation of the crisis. So this is what this phrase climate justice is all about. It's the idea that we have to look at historical responsibility because then you have a much more equal negotiation because countries come to the table with the idea that actually they're owed something because they're living the effects of a problem that they didn't create.